Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about Elon Musk and why I don't like him, and I don't think he represents good things in this world. But before we get started with the video, I would appreciate if you could like, comment, and subscribe down there. It would help me out a lot on this growing channel. Also, I stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday on twitch.tv/funwithfondue at 5 p.m. Central European time. You can come in there, share some thoughts and comments if you would like. And lastly, I have a Patreon, patreon.com/funwithfondue if you want to support me monetarily. Now then, let's get started then, shall we? Elon Reeve Musk was born on June 28th, 1971 in South Africa. He has a mother by the name of May Musk, who is a model and a dietitian, and he has a father named Errol Musk, who is a electromechanical engineer, pilot, sailor, consultant, and prosperity developer. And also in his family are a younger brother called Kimball and a younger sister called Tosca, just to give an idea of his family makeup. And a little bit more on his background. He studied at the University of Pennsylvania, where he graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in economics from the Wharton School and a Bachelor of Arts degree in physics. So that is his academic background. He also got accepted into a PhD program where he was there for 2 days and then dropped out because he wanted to focus on the up-and-coming internet boom at the time, which was very profitable for him. So I want to talk about one important fact that gets brought up a lot about his background, which is that his family owned an emerald mine in apartheid South Africa. Now, this is true. His family did own an emerald mine in South Africa during the apartheid, and I want to highlight this fact, not because I think that makes him a bad person, because that's not his fault. That's what his father did. You know, his father bought the emerald mine. It wasn't his choice because he was still a kid at that point. So I don't want to say like the sins of the father are the sins of the child. But I do want to highlight that this shows that he came from a very affluent background. Although later on, he moved to North America, he left that wealth behind. I believe he's not in good terms with his father, but I'm not sure on what the details on that is. The point being that even though he came to America with very little money, according to himself, and very little possessions, he did, before that, benefit from a well-off and wealthy upbringing. He first came to Canada because that's where his mom is from originally, so he got citizenship to Canada through his mother. And then from Canada, he made his way to the US, where he studied, and he has also mentioned that when he finished university, he had about $100,000 in loans, and that he paid off this through work. That he paid off his tuition at university through work and loans. But it should also be noted that the tuition fee in Wharton at the time when he was studying in 1992 was $16,838, which adjusted to inflation would be $31,393 in today's currency. And then if we look at the tuition fee now in the University of Pennsylvania, which is where the Wharton School is, it's $57,770 US dollars is the tuition fee for an undergraduate. So it is considerably more expensive now. And again, not trying to say like, well, it was easy for him back then. Just want to point out that when he says he was able to pay it off through work and loans, it was a different situation back in the 90s than it is now. It's more expensive now. Just something that we should remember, that it is more expensive now to study in the US than it was 30 years ago. Then before we talk about the things I don't like about him, I want to dispel two myths about him. First myth is that he made PayPal. It's sort of true and sort of not true. So PayPal was a product made by Cofinity, which was a competitor to Musk and his brother's company, X.com. And these two companies merged into one company in 2000. But the PayPal product was a product that Cofinity had made already before they merged. So Elon Musk did not make the product PayPal, but he did found the company because PayPal became its own company later on, in a way, because the companies merged together. So if someone says like he made PayPal, he didn't make PayPal himself. He just merged with the company that made PayPal the product, and then that became its own company later. So yeah, if someone says to you, hey, Elon Musk made PayPal, what are you talking about? You can be like, no, he actually did not make PayPal, the product. He didn't do that. That was not him. Because he's very often portrayed as, this genius, tech wizard who made a lot of stuff. Then, second myth, that he founded Tesla. He didn't. Tesla was founded by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning in 2003, and Musk joined in 2004 by investing $6.3 million in Tesla stocks. So, again, if someone's like, well, he made Tesla, no. He did not found the company. That's not him. He later on hopped on board at an early stage, sure, yes, but he did not found the company. He's not a founder. What was the thing that made him rich? The thing that made him rich originally was Zip2 with his brother. He founded in 1995, and then he sold Zip2 to Compaq for $307 million in 1999. Of course, not all of that money came to him. He received $22 million from that. And then after that, after he was successful with that, he co-founded X.com, as I mentioned before. And then later on, PayPal became the big product of X.com, and PayPal was sold to eBay for $1.5 billion in stock, and Musk received over $100 million from this. And this is where Musk got his big money, is from the PayPal selling. And then now I'm going to get to the reasons why I don't like him. Like, this isn't just like, oh, he's a bad person or whatever. No, I think he has demonstrably done negative things that have a negative impact on many, many people. And the first one I want to start with is his union busting. So in 2019, Tesla was found guilty of 12 actions of sabotaging unionization efforts at a California factory of theirs. And these actions include the following things: guards harassing the pro-union employees, which there were 4 of who were pushing for unionization, when they were distributing union leaflets in the factory parking lot. An action which completely legal, but they were told it was not legal, which is not true. Then, threatening of being fired if these unionizers spread pro-union stickers and leaflets. And after these employees delivered a petition about workplace safety and wanting to unionize to Elon Musk himself, he called one of these pro-union workers and his colleague to his office. Sorry, to his colleague, as in the pro-union worker, to Musk's office, where Musk and the head of HR tried to dissuade them from unionizing, which is illegal. You cannot do that. The following day, the head of HR suggested to Musk via email about hiring the pro-union people as full-time on security issues. Of course, at first you're like, oh, well, that's a good thing, right? Because they listen to them. No, because hiring them full-time would make it so that they cannot unionize because they're salaried employees. So this was an attempt on their part to make sure that they cannot unionize. Then the company enforced a dress code that barred pro-union shirts and buttons. And lastly, Musk threatened on Twitter that employees would lose stock options if they unionize and other benefits. And we have to remember that in the end, why did the employees want to unionize? They wanted to unionize because they were concerned about security issues at the workplace and people getting injured because they were made to work long hours on machines that weren't ergonomical. This is the reason, one of the main reasons why they wanted to unionize. And Musk and his company heavily fought against that. Unfortunately, even though they were found guilty of these charges, unfortunately the regulatory body that enacts these doesn't have much power. It basically ended up as a slap on the wrists, unfortunately. And so this is, I feel like this type of anti-union behavior is very, very bad. He has stated that, he's not anti-union, he just didn't like the specific union that they were working with, which I think is a very poor response to all of this, because it's not like Elon Musk gets to decide which union his employees will become a part of when they unionize. That's not how this works. It's the employees' decision which union they will be part of when they unionize, because the union shouldn't be there so that the employer is the most happy with that union. The union is there so that workers can collectively bargain. Because divided we beg, together we bargain. Workers alone can't really bargain for much on a systemic level. You might be able to bargain a little bit more pay for yourself, just you, but like wide sweeping changes at a company, you as an individual worker don't have that much power. But if all the workers get together, or most of the workers get together and say, hey, we want these changes, and if you don't do these changes, we will strike, we won't work. That is very powerful. Whereas if one person says, I'm not going to work, they're going to say, okay, we'll fire you and find someone else. But if a whole factory shuts down, they have to listen. And they have to do something. They have to give some concessions. You might not get all the things you ask for, but you'll still get something. And this is why unions are so important. And unions are responsible for a lot of things that we take for granted now. The 40-hour work week, weekends, children not having to work anymore, paid vacation, more so here in Europe than in the US, sick days, all of these things. These have been won by unions. They don't exist just because of the niceness of the companies. It's because of unions. One of the other reasons why I don't like him is that he is incredibly irresponsible with his behavior on Twitter. Like, he has a lot of followers on the old twitter.com. Over 48 million followers on twitter.com, which is a lot. He has a huge platform, and I think he's very, very irresponsible with it, how he uses it. Like in July of 2018, some of you might remember this, but a group of soccer players and their coach got trapped in a cave in Thailand due to flooding. And there was a big, emergency situation. They were trying to get them out of there quickly. They didn't have enough oxygen because they were trapped there. And during that time, Musk proposed to help the rescue efforts by providing a submarine that his team had designed. Notice, his team had designed, not him alone. But the offer was turned down because the leader of the rescue operation said that, the submarine wouldn't work. It wouldn't be able to turn the corners that it needs to turn. And he accused Musk of just wanting to help as a PR stunt, but not really caring about the situation. And to this, Elon Musk decided to call him a pedo guy on Twitter. Super cool behavior. And when he later on went to court over this, he called this a common phrase in South Africa, where he grew up, which I think is an incredibly disingenuous lie. Even if it was true, like, let's assume it's true. Let's assume that, all right, this phrase, which is a terrible phrase, you should not call people just like that. Let's assume that it was something that happened, or it was a common phrase when he grew up in the 70s and 80s in South Africa. Let's assume. He has been in the North America since he was 17 years old. There's no way that he keeps using this term when he's been in the United States for a majority of his life, or North America. It doesn't make sense as a defense. It just doesn't make sense to me. But of course, the courts found differently. But yeah, I think this is extremely irresponsible behavior to do this type of stuff. And the leader of the rescue operation said that it ruined his reputation, because accusing someone of something as serious as pedophilia has very serious consequences to someone. Even just accusing someone of that, very serious. Like, you just can't do that like that. It's just not okay. But this is not the only instance of him being very irresponsible with his Twitter platform. Another is spreading COVID misinformation. So on Twitter, he has promoted studies that suggested that doctors are inflating case numbers for financial reasons. This was roughly a year ago when the whole thing was still kind of starting. He also suggested that the vast majority of fatalities in Italy are due to other causes, also roughly a year ago. And he promoted a widely discredited paper on the benefits of chloroquine, which was, of course, not beneficial. So during a global pandemic, to do this type of stuff is incredibly irresponsible and dangerous when you have over 40 million followers. Like, you can't behave like, you know, someone's uncle who posts like, interesting link about suggesting that doctors are inflating, you know, COVID numbers for money. Interesting. Like, you can't do that when you have 40 million followers. When you have 40 million followers on Twitter, there's a different type of responsibility. It's just how it is. Like, and if you're like, oh, he did it for the memes. No, I don't believe it. I don't believe that he did it for the lols or the memes, because if we just look at how many times he spread COVID misinformation, it's a pattern. It's not an accident. Like, if he would have done it once and stopped, okay, sure. But he did it like several times. He spread COVID misinformation. He also had a moment where he doubted the validity of COVID tests, because he had 4 tests during the same day, and 2 had come negative and 2 had come positive. But I believe they were rapid tests, which are less reliable than the longer form tests. So, cool. But moving on, because this is still not the last piece of irresponsible use of his platform. Still not the last one. The third example of him being very irresponsible with his platform is basically saying, like, the US cooing Bolivia, A-okay with him. Because Bolivia's president at the time, Evo Morales, was cooed by a US-backed far-right faction within Bolivia, because Evo's term had not come to the end yet, and they ousted him. He had to escape from Bolivia until recently he was able to return, because his party won the new election. And Evo Morales has very heavily been fighting against the privatization of Bolivia's lithium resources, because Bolivia has a lot of lithium resources, and wouldn't you know, the batteries that Tesla cars use need lithium. So Musk responded to a tweet that was criticizing the Bolivian coup by the US government by saying, "We will coup whoever we want, deal with it." Extremely cool. Being okay with the US government saying, "We don't like this. We don't like the fact that you're not selling your lithium resources to us and our companies." No. Isn't there someone you forgot to ask? Us, the US, baby. So we're just gonna coup you. Fuck you. And the US has done this over Latin America a lot, as we have discussed many, many times on this stream. It's just par the course, the US. But yeah, this is just some of the stuff that Elon has done on the old Twitter, and I think he uses his platform very, very irresponsibly and dangerously. I don't like it. The next point on why I don't like Elon Reeve Musk is that he steals credit for work that he didn't do, at least not fully. So Musk is often seen as a driving force for his success. Like that he is one of the singular reasons why he's so successful, because he works so hard, because he's a genius, because he's a visionary that can see things that others can't, right? But business writer Ashley Vance wrote that at SpaceX, engineers, quote, flew into a collective rage every time they caught Musk in the press, claiming to have designed the Falcon rocket more or less by himself, end quote. So this highlights the fact that Musk depends heavily on other people who have way more expertise with cars, rockets, aeronautics, and energy, to name a few things. Like, there are many, many, many more people who work at his companies to make the technology, for example, for Tesla or for SpaceX or for any of his other companies that he runs, to make those happen. I'm not saying that Musk doesn't put in work at his own companies to make stuff happen as well. Sure, he might. I don't know. And I don't really care. That's not the point. The point is that there are all other people that also do a lot of the heavy lifting, but Musk pushes them to the side and tries to make it seem like he is the one who makes them all. Like, he made this rocket by himself. He made Tesla by himself. Like, no. There are a lot of other people who work on these things to solve these issues. At SpaceX, there's Gwynne Shotwell, who's the company president. Manages operations and oversees complex negotiations, because when you're doing space travel, there's a lot of things that you need to take into account. And a lot of different officials that you need to talk with and you need to be in good relationships with. And at Tesla, JB Straubel, the chief technology officer, is responsible for major technological advances. Just to name a few people that are heavy lifters but never get brought up in this narrative of Musk's genius. Then, kind of as a continuation on this taking credit part, is that Musk hides the fact that there's public funding to his companies. So Musk's companies heavily rely on the public sector and years of publicly funded technology and innovations, which Musk tries to obscure. Quote, SpaceX is surfing on years and years of government-funded technology and public sector support, as Mariana Mazzucato, an economist at University of Sussex and author of The Entrepreneurial State, points out. It's a very good point. Like, if we just speak of Tesla, it relies on lithium-ion batteries, as I mentioned before. These were pioneered in the late 1980s with major funding from the Department of Energy and the National Science Foundation. Tesla has also benefited tremendously from guaranteed loans and federal subsidies. In 2010, the company reached a loan agreement with the Department of Energy worth $465 million. In addition, Tesla has received $1.29 billion in tax incentives from Nevada, where it is building a gigafactory to produce batteries for cars and consumers. It's also won an array of other loans and tax credits, plus rebates for its consumers, totaling another $1 billion, according to Los Angeles Times. So this shows, like, the technology that Musk uses in many of his companies doesn't just come out of thin air. This same thing can be said for Apple, for example. The iPhone, though when it came out, an amazing piece of, technology, it revolutionized technology, yes, certainly. A lot of the technology in it had already been done by public funding. Wi-Fi, internet, touchscreen, all these different components had already been researched and developed by public funding. And then Apple pulled it together into one product, which, again, I'm not saying that's not a great feat. I'm not saying. But I'm saying they didn't develop those individual parts. They didn't develop those things. They pulled them together, which, again, I'm not saying is like some, it's not even anything. It's not my point. My point is, we often try to see them as they invented everything in it. That's not true. So it's also laughable then that Musk tries to spin a success story which fails to acknowledge all of this public funding, like the money itself that they get from the government, and then innovations and technologies of publicly funded projects. He called the LA Times series that I mentioned before, quote, misleading and deceptive, end quote, for instance, and told CNBC that, quote, none of the government subsidies are necessary, end quote, though he did admit that they are helpful. I think this is really fun for him to say, like, oh, they're not necessary, those millions and billions of dollars that we get from the government, and oh, they're not necessary, these technological advances that we live off of. Really? Then don't take them then. Like, there's a reason why they're taking all of that money. Is because it is important for them. It's very important for them. Like, it's very important to take millions and billions from the government. And I'm not saying the government supporting companies like Tesla is inherently a bad thing. Like, I think we should move to more greener energy sources and more greener forms for our cars. Granted, I don't think it should be just in personal cars. It should also be in public transportation, but that's a different discussion. But him trying to hide it as like, oh, this is not necessary. Oh, whatever. We don't actually need these billions. It's like, come on, stop the bullshit. Just stop it. So all of this, when Musk is saying, he invents the things himself, public funding, what is that? Never heard of him. All of this plays to the great man myth. Now, if you're not familiar with the great man myth, it's very common in our history teachings, in our history books. Although in recent times, historians have fought back against that very heavily. It's this idea that history is shaped by great men, which is a very reductive view of history. History is a lot more complex than a few individuals. Did these individuals play important parts? Sure, but there are also other aspects than just them. And this great man myth also can be found in tech. Elon Musk is the genius who does everything at Tesla or SpaceX and, all this stuff. And the problem with this myth is that it helps excuse, or at the very least enable, some terrible behavior. And Elon Musk is known for humiliating engineers and firing employees on a whim. For example, he fired his assistant of 12 years in 2014 when she dared ask for a raise. And of course, this type of behavior can jeopardize crucial relationships. But this type of behavior is not unique to Elon Musk. It's very common, especially in the Silicon Valley tech business. Another great example of this is Steve Jobs, who was known for his entitled behavior and brutish behavior towards employees. I think we are all very familiar with his personality. Walter Isaacson wrote in his biography, Steve Jobs, "Nasty was not necessary, it hindered him more than it helped." And then lastly, when we focus on the great men, our vision of the future is distorted. Like, why should governments do the hard work of fixing and expanding California's mass transit system when Musk can just make the Hyperloop? Is trying to colonize Mars at a cost of billions of dollars actually the right direction for future space exploration and scientific research? Don't worry. Musk will figure that out for you. Don't worry about it, Chief. It's all good. And this leads to my final point. I don't think any one person should hold as much power as Elon Musk does. Or at the very least, if they do, they should be democratically elected to hold such powers. And I would like to say a quote from Elon Musk here. Quote, "In order to have your voice be heard in Washington, you have to make some little contribution. But I have found Washington to be really, I guess it depends on what your benchmark is, but I haven't found Washington to be as corrupt as a lot of people think it is, meaning it's not as coin operated as some people may assume. And I'm very actually grateful for that, because if it were, we would have zero chance." This is what Elon Musk himself said, which I think, of course, is laughable, saying that it's not corrupt when he, in the same sentence or in the same paragraph, says that in order to get a seat at the table, he has to pay. And he does. He contributes to Democrats and Republicans alike. So I think this is really wrong. Like, should rich people be able to buy their way to politicians to get a seat at the table? Should rich people have the power to decide how our cities are planned just because they're rich? Should they be able to decide how our public transportation is planned? Or how our space programs are planned? I don't think so. I think this type of power that has a tremendous effect on communities, countries, even the whole world, I think this type of power should not be given to one person or a few people just because they have a lot of wealth. These are huge societal issues that affect everyone. If this is the type of power that we give to few people, it should be given democratically, and there should be clear accountability for those people. You should not have the right to decide on societal issues like this just because you have a lot of money. I don't think that's just. I think it just creates a new class of aristocracy where they have the ear of the king or queen because they're rich, and they get to decide on what happens because they're rich. And I don't think that's how it should be. I don't think Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, any of these people should have this type of power. If you want to be rich, fine. But even there is a limit. This type of wealth is extracted from the working people. The fact that he has billions of dollars to his name, it's not just because he works himself hard. It's because people under him work hard as well and make those things happen. Elon Musk could put all the money that he has inside of a factory. That money will not transform into cars or rockets or whatever. They transform into those things because workers make those things. And they should also share in that success and the profit evenly. Anyway, this has been my talk on why I don't like Elon Musk. I don't think you should be a fan of his either. Is his company Tesla doing cars that are more environmentally friendly? Sure. But I don't think that alone is worth being a fan of his, as I have shown in this video why I don't particularly like him. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you could, please like, comment, and subscribe down there. It would help me out very, very much. Also, I stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5 p.m. Central European Time on twitch.tv/funwithfondue. Link down there. If you want to come hang out with us, ask questions, comment, feel free to jump in. And I also have a Patreon, patreon.com/funwithfondue. If you want to support me monetarily, link is also down there in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.